Hi, I'm Nate. You're watching Photolearningism. We've been covering color the last few weeks if you've been following. If not, feel free to go check out those videos. But I wanted to wrap down that whole little series on color by looking one more time a little bit deeper at lookup tables, specifically in Krita. It's going to be awesome. Let's do it. Alright, so once again, I'm Nate. This is Photolearningism. If this is your first time here, I do a lot of work on this channel to surface the cheap or free art technologies so that you can know about them and make good use of that. And also be a part of a growing community of learners to become connected and to share your experience and help us all grow collectively. So thank you so much. I wanted to reach back into color, and specifically, I wanted to look at OpenColorIO. It's complicated. We've been looking at ICC profiles, we've been looking at LUTs, lookup tables, and how that applies to working with graphics and photos and things like that. And really, this all brings it together. I'm going to be looking in Krita and looking at what we can do with editing images. So let's do that. So you may be aware that Krita does support raw image formats out of the box. I'm going to bring in an NEF, which is a Nikon raw image format. And let's start by doing that. And the loader is not sophisticated as some. We've looked at raw therapy and Darktable and many others, and I encourage you to go watch those videos as well. This one is very simplistic. There's a few loading options. So there's not a lot to do here other than load it in, honestly, but that's kind of good enough, and I'll get to why. So this is not the latest and greatest version. It is Krita 4.4.2, and even then it's a beta. I know that 4.4.3 just came out. Haven't had time to download it yet, but in truth, 4.4.3 is a pure bug fix solution. There are no new features. That's why I haven't rushed to go get it. But just to be aware, that's where I am right now. So in Krita here, again, loading a raw image, there's a Docker here that I want to draw your attention to that works specifically with this OpenColorIO. And the way you reveal it would be to go into Settings, Dockers, and then you need to flip on LUT Management. That brings on this module over here, and it loads at first like this, where it'll load dormant. There we go. And even when you flip it on, there's not a lot to do because it doesn't have any config files, they're called. You actually need collections of those LUTs, those lookup tables, to really do anything significant with it. So you can flip it on, you can kind of become familiar with some of the choices and some of the options that are there, but just know that you actually have to go acquire some configurations and LUTs to use it. And the best place to do that is actually, again, right from the OpenColorIO site. I'll put a link in the description below. They have some options under downloads. Just bring that up again. And this is what you're looking for right here. They do have their Windows and they do have their Linux versions of these, but they are collections of LUTs with an accompanying config file. It's what tells it how to interface those LUTs. In this case, with Krita, it's kind of a standard of organization, but there's a whole mess of them. It's actually about 2.5 gigs worth compressed down. So there's a lot of different LUTs in here, just so you're prepared. This may take time depending on your internet connection to acquire. All right. Once you have it, what you can do is, once this is on and enabled in Krita here, you can set the color engine to OCIO, and that reveals this configuration field, which then you can go select one of those LUTs. Now, within, there's a lot of different options, and truth be told, I have not been through them all because I'm going to go with hundreds possibilities here, and they're not all clearly labeled, so you kind of have to play with them a little bit and find a style that's going to suit the look you're after, or at least as a starting place. These are labeled as samples, but I find them to be pretty well developed as they are as a starting place. If you really want to dig into creating your own, baking them is a pretty complicated process from what I'm seeing. Really, the only interfaces that I could find are all command line based. I did not find a tool that is graphical or makes that simpler. If you know of one, shout it out in the comments and help us all. But I could not find a simpler way to do that. So the samples right now I think are a great start, and they do offer a good enhancement to just jumping in and making use of them, particularly in Krita, because not a lot of people will see Krita as a photographer's tool. I've used it that way. I've mentioned that in my videos, early videos, but it is, as you may know, it is geared towards illustration and graphics, but it does have this kind of silent photography part where it does work with raw images and it works with LUTs. All right, so I'm going to start with this ACES 071 because it's a little more basic than the other ones, and it gives us just kind of a good taste of what it is. We're going to do the config OCIO and point to that, and that gives us some choices. Now, the real power of this is actually working in the color space, which retranslates. These are really the LUTs. These are the lookup tables that translate color to color value. Your device does have to be set for this to be more pronounced. I like this bottom one, the P3DCI, I believe it is. You could go with RGB, but what I found is that tends to make things very dark, at least in my case, the way things are calibrated. And that was just a bit too much. So I like to stick with this bottom one because it shows a little bit more of the detail. And also, I'm going to put this on RRT. RAW tends to stick with more of the raw image data, and I want to kind of get away from that. I actually want to leverage the power of the LUT to translate the color for me. All right. So that's what's really kind of going on here. So let's play with this color space a little bit. All right. So you can already see that this LUT is translating in a certain way where it tones it up towards a redder, more orange look. Raw kind of brings it back again to the raw, so I'm not going to do that one. Linear will again change that to a more toned look. We can jump through these and you can see the different pieces. Some of them will be very subtle and you have to watch very closely. Others will be more pronounced. This one again is a really good place to start because there's a pretty short list that you can click through and kind of see the available starting places for each LUT. You can adjust the exposure, you can adjust the gamma if you want to tweak the color power just a little bit one way or the other. You can also adjust down here absolute black or absolute white with a little bit of tweaking, and you can lock the color so that as you make other adjustments to black and white, it will auto adjust for you. Trying to lock those in, they say in the documentation that it was funny wording like that may not be recommended or something like that. So use that cautiously. But you do have those controls to kind of tweak a little bit even within the LUT to get a more refined, more personal look out of it if you want to. But this is a big thing because, again, Krita kind of gets its name from doing the more freehand drawing aspects, the illustration, the graphics, the digital painting. Doing photography is kind of frowned on in this tool because it's not really called out for that much, but it does have a practical use for this in that, as I mentioned, it has the raw loading component built in, and it has this LUT capacity where you can extend it with this colorizing collection of standards from the OpenColorIO. And again, these are all samples, but there's so many of them to explore. If we were to jump into one of these other ones, let's just bring up the ACES even 101. There is a ton of stuff here and a ton of different styles to explore here as well. And this is the list. And this just goes on. So there's a lot of field of play. If you get into baking your own, again, it's a very complicated art, but it could be very fruitful in that you could achieve a very unique look for you that you could plug in just with a few clicks here. You could have your own LUT, your own LUT. So for that to me is very valuable. You could craft a look, tweak the gamma, get it to a very stylized presentation, and then make your own tweaks beyond that to really kind of work with photos in a way that you may not get in other tools. Other things that we've looked at, and I've spoken a lot about raw therapy, for example, fantastic tool, but it doesn't do this. It has LUTs on a very basic level, a one-dimensional level, that works more on a PNG overlay that interprets color. It doesn't work like this. This is a little bit more multi-dimensional and has a lot more baked into it that you can play with. It didn't do that. So that's why I see this as a greater strength if you're going to be looking for the toned look, or at least the one-click toned look. This is a way to do that. All you need is a tool that understands those config files, that config.ocio, and you can get a whole mess of them right from the site, right by downloading those and then pointing, in this case, Krita, to those respective config files to look at the LUTs. So I hope that gives you another nugget, another broad horizon of things that you can check into and be excited about and really build up, in this case, your photography work. I mean, who knew that Krita could be so versatile in this field? Definitely try it out. Jump into the comments and tell me about your experience. Let me know if there's a way that we could take this one step further with photography and Krita, because I love looking for ways we haven't thought of to use these fantastic open source tools that are free, by the way. If you don't have Krita, go get a copy. It's a fantastic tool. All right. Once again, Nate, this is Photolearningism. If this resonated with you, please give me a thumbs up to let me know that it was good for you. Consider subscribing so you don't miss out on the awesome things that we'll be doing in the future. And as I said, leave a comment and join the conversation. And the comments are not just for me, they're for the whole community. So don't hesitate to do that and ask a question, keeping it family-friendly, of course, because that's the environment that we're cultivating. And I'll see you at the next video. Thank you so much.